Hey guys, so I've been watching these debates between Alex O'Connor and Cliffe Knechtle. Alex O'Connor represents the agnostic side, and Cliffe Knechtle is representing the Christian side. And there's two arguments that are being brought up for both sides, and I feel like I have a response for both sides. And I actually want to, if I'm stupid and I'm not seeing past my own logic, feel free to point this out to me. But one thing that Alex O'Connor constantly brings up to rebut Christianity, or at least to have to present in front of Christianity in order to have the Christian worldview, or somebody representing the Christian worldview, explain to him, is why is there suffering before the fall of man? Why can a tree fall on a deer's leg and the deer can't move, and it serves no ethical or moral purpose for the salvation of humanity, and that deer is starving there for a week, suffering, only a week later to get a mountain lion, grab his neck, and choke him to death? So, what purpose is that playing in Christianity or in God? And why would God create a world? If he can create any world that he can create, why would he create a world with so much suffering and misery even before the fall of man, right? The argument he brings up with animals is to take the factor of man out, because what Cliffe Knechtle kept saying is, well, of course, after the fall of man, the world went into chaos and we are no longer in the Garden of Eden. But he's like, well, what about before that? And my answer to that is, representing the Christian side, or I'm an agnostic myself, but like the way that I see it answered is, what makes you believe that pain is bad, or that misery is bad, or not part of God's plan, right? Like, I understand that pain is miserable by definition. I understand that it sucks. I understand that it's not, from a human perspective, or even from an animal perspective, not the ideal, in the sense of why experience those emotions, or like why experience those things unnecessarily if it doesn't bring towards redemption or towards any kind of development or ethical, redemption of the soul or of the animal or whatever. And why can't it be part of the human experience? Like, we humans, we like to call things good or bad. We like to look at pain and say, okay, this is something to avoid because it doesn't feel good. But at the same time, both pain and joy, or being elated, like elation and being happy and excited, like when the deer maybe has a baby fawn born and they're excited and they're jumping around, or they haven't seen another deer in a while and they meet them finally 3 weeks later and they're excited, they're jumping around like a little puppy. That elation, just like pain, are both part of the experience of life on earth, equally so. Neither one of them is good or bad, right? There's the Indian story of how a man would always say, it's a proverb, about how he never called anything good or bad. And he was a king's jester, for example, and he broke his arm. And they're like, well, that's a bad thing that happened. He's like, well, you don't know if it's good or bad because you don't know what's going to happen. And then there's a draft for war, and they don't draft him for the war because his arm is broken and he's not able to do. And then all the young men die in that war, and he survives, and the war ends. And they're like, and he's like, everyone's like, oh, well, it's a good thing you broke your arm. You didn't get drafted to war. You survived. He's like, well, you don't know if it's good or bad. Because he didn't go to war, and because he survived, when the other party finally took over their kingdom, they took him into capture. And they're like, hey, maybe it would have been good that, and they're known for causing all kinds of torture and like being so terrible to the people they captured, to the captives. And they're like, well, it's a bad thing, actually, that you survived the war. You would have been better off dying in that war than getting captured by these people. And now they're going to torture you, and it's going to be so much worse than just dying quickly if you were in battle. And And he's like, well, you don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. So they bring him in front of the king, and they're like, we're going to sacrifice you to our God, and we have to put you through this torture ritual, because for us, that's how we honor our God, in order to, by making our enemies suffer, because they don't worship our God, and they deserve all the suffering for not being of our, religious persuasion. Obviously, they don't use those words. But then they see his broken arm, or that it didn't heal properly, so his arm wasn't straight, and so now he was a blemished sacrifice, and their God would not accept a blemished sacrifice. And they're like, actually, we can't sacrifice you now, because you will not be a good person to sacrifice to God to, because of the blemish you have in your body. So we will find something else to do with you. You will become a slave. And so now all of a sudden it's a good thing again that he broke his arm and that he got captured by the tribe, because he now is not a good sacrifice. And so like it just keeps going like on and on of like how a good thing can be a bad thing and a bad thing can be a good thing. In the same way, pain and suffering is equally a human experience or an animal experience as elation and joy. And why is one good or bad? And you might say, well, if God would have created a world where there is no pain and suffering and no misery, why are we even thinking in terms of like, even within the bounds of Christianity, why are we thinking in terms of everything has to have a purpose for the purpose of redemption and salvation? Like, I understand that for humans, looking at it even from a mythological perspective, if you look at the Bible as a mythological archetypal projection and encapsulation of all human life in symbolic form, even then the question is, obviously there's redemptive portions to it. Obviously there's portions of salvation that make up a part of that story, of that myth that we're currently living out. But also there's just life of good and bad. Look at Job. Like, you could say that the story of Job was a story about perseverance and how it all paid off. But in the same way, it's not necessarily. It's just a story of hope. Like, even all these things, bad things happen, he stayed faithful, and he was basically repaid. Life caught up to him. But even if Job went through all that suffering and died at the end and there was no redemption, it still would have been equally a story about life, because some people do go through hell and do retain their character and they still die. And we still read stories about them, of somebody who suffered through prison and went through all this persecution and still died a terrible death. Like Apostle Paul, right? Hung upside down. Like, went through all the suffering, was beaten several times, stoned several times, like constantly just getting into trouble and suffering and persevering, only to die a terrible death. And I believe, was it John, at least as far as story or like verbal story goes, none of this is like 100% confirmed, was boiled in like oil, right? Like, some people say he just died an old death on the island of Patmos. Other people say like he was literally boiled in a heaping bowl, like a heaping whatever thing of oil, or one of them was. So it's not always about redemption. Like, the redemption is of our soul, right? Of who we are, of being able to retain our character and what we stand for and who we are as people. But suffering and pain are part of the human experience. They're part of the animal experience. They aren't good or bad. So when you say, why doesn't God create a world with no misery and suffering and all this stuff? It's like, why not? Like, as much as I hate suffering, right? As much as I absolutely despise and hate misery and suffering, after I have gone through it and I've come out on the other side, it made me so much more grateful for my life. It made me so much, it amplified and absolutely like lit up all the positives in my life, right? It makes you so much more grateful for little things, for being able to breathe, for being able to survive, for even being able to experience the suffering you did experience. Just the feeling of being alive, right? Even the pain, it means you're alive. You know, they say like, if you feel pain, it means you're alive. And regardless of what your ideology is, being alive is a gift. Like, being able to participate in this journey of life, however short it is, that's a gift in itself. Even the pain, we should embrace it, not like seek it out and fall in love with it, but embrace the part of the human experience. So my answer to Alex is, you're saying, like, why would God create a world with all this stuff and suffering? Why not? Like, why is it bad? Yeah, it's miserable. Yeah, it really sucks. But why is it bad? It's equally part of the human experience. And you're like, well, if I would have created a world, I would have created it this way and this way, right? I don't understand that argument at all. Even for a loving God, like, it doesn't mean, like, someone who loves you isn't just gonna, he can create any world, right? He can create any world he wants, and this is the world he chooses to create. Even from a Christian perspective, what's so bad about it? Even with pain and suffering. And to answer Cliffe Knechtle, probably better to do in a different video, but I don't think the answer is going to be super long, even though I know for the Alex one it's pretty long. For Cliffe Knechtle, he says that Alex avoids the question of, like, in Christianity, what you have is you have an answer. Like, at the end of the day, you have to know what's going to happen when you die. And if you're going to be intellectually honest, you have to agree that there is no absolute foundation for being agnostic. And so if you're going to be an atheist, or if you're going to say there is no God because I don't see evidence for God, then you believe in the alternative, that there probably isn't a God, or I don't know if there is a God. And you put your faith in that. So no matter what, you're putting faith into it, right? You're either putting faith in God, or you're not putting faith in God. But if there's no faith in there being a God, how can you be sure equally that there is no God and put your faith in that? Why would you do that, right? So why would you put your faith in a negative rather than a positive? Is his argument. And he's like, if you're so intellectual and you're so smart, why would you choose the alternative that there isn't one, and it's fully based on uncertainty? Because you can't prove that there is no God. So why not believe that there is a God? Because it's just such a better, more superior worldview. Like, it gives you more hope. It gives you a solution to all this pain and suffering that's in the world, because once you believe in Jesus Christ, now there's a hope in a future that you can live towards. There's redemption, there's salvation, there's heaven, right? There's life after death. Why would you not believe this if you have the equal amount of evidence for both, which is a lack of evidence, basically? Like, if you don't have evidence for either one, why not believe the better one, right? You still have to believe in the negative and say there is no God. Why would you do that? And so he was like, answer me this. Like, he kept repeating this, like, you're not answering my question. And Alex, I haven't watched the whole 3-hour debate, but I did watch, like, fast forwarded through it. Alex kept saying, like, well, he didn't keep saying, but, like, intellectual responses, well, why believe in a negative? Like, sorry, you can't prove a negative, right? So it's not that I'm believing that there is no God. I'm just saying there is no, like, it's like saying, well, why would you not believe in the tooth fairy? Just because you don't have evidence in the tooth fairy, it's still a better system to believe in, so why not believe in it? Why not believe in Santa Claus? Like, yeah, there's no evidence for it, but it's such a better solution for why we get gifts, blah, blah, blah. Why not believe in it? Why do you believe there isn't one, right? So applying the same logic, even though Christianity claims to have, like, way more, a ton of evidence more than Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus, like, why not believe in the negative? And Alex's constant answer is, I just don't know. Like, I'm not claiming there isn't a God. He's just saying, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen evidence of him. I haven't had a personal experience of him. Therefore, I don't believe in him. And if I'm going to be intellectually honest, which Alex O'Connor is like, that's his whole brand, is being intellectually honest while being skeptical. If I'm being intellectually honest, I haven't personally experienced him. I haven't seen any evidence of him that I can't naturalistically explain. So therefore, I don't believe in him. Right? So I personally believe he is, despite what Cliffe Knechtle says, he is being intellectually honest. Right? He's just saying, I don't see evidence for him. I haven't personally experienced him in any way or any capacity that would make me convinced that he's there. And he even says, I wish I did, so that I would have this certainty, because the Christian worldview does appeal to me. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a fantasy, and all the evidence that you guys bring up, in his mind, has been rebutted. So he's like, why? I have no evidence either way, and I haven't had a personal experience, therefore I don't believe in it. So in Cliffe Knechtle's response, it's not that he's being dishonest or that he needs evidence. He's just saying, I haven't seen the evidence. And then Cliffe Knechtle's like, well, what do you believe in? He's like, well, I don't. Like, I don't believe... Alex doesn't believe in anything. Well, it's like, well, then the question is, how do you go about living your life if you don't believe in anything? Well, you just go off of impulse, right? Humans do have, like, all across every nation, and Christians actually propose this too. C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, he talks about this too. Humans, on a very basic, fundamental level, have a conscience, or have some kind of moral compass. In every religion and in every culture, yeah, the moral compass varies a little here and there, but there is things like betrayal, bad in every culture, because it literally does not help the survival of a community if everyone's betraying each other. Like, there's certain fundamental things that you can identify in every community where either the elders or their religious scripts or their culture rejects and... what's the opposite of condones? Curses, and says, like, you don't act this way, right? The elders of the community, or the people supporting the culture, or even the verbal word of the people that are being passed down generation to generation, they I forget the right word, but they reject certain behaviors. And those certain behaviors that are rejected seem to be founded on a similar level. And so what Alex is doing, because he doesn't believe in anything, is he's just going off of impulse. Hurting other people for the sake of hurting other people is bad, right? It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make the other person feel good. I don't want to do it. And so what he's going off of is how to maximally increase the well-being of those around me and myself. And most things that the Bible promotes as good behaviors usually are almost every single one of them you can pinpoint to short-term sacrifice that would result in long-term benefit for you and the community, right? Almost every single law, every single thing that Christianity stands for is short-term sacrifice, and oftentimes personal sacrifice, for the benefit of the community or for the benefit of the community and yourself in the long term. Literally every single sin can be boiled down to that the Bible talks about is the opposite of that would be sin. So if you are electing to do something that is short-term pleasurable or short-term good for you, but hurts the community in the long run, or hurts the community and yourself in the long run, then that's a sin. And the opposite, holy and righteous behavior, is something that benefits you in the long term, or you and the community in the long term, and you choose to do that even if it means personal sacrifice in the short term, right? So that literally all of Christianity can be measured by that as far as behavior goes, right? Actual sins, actual laws, actual commandments. Anyway, all those things considered, Alex O'Connor, yes, we have a loving God, and God in the Bible has many faces. Like, are we talking about Old Testament? Are we talking about New Testament? Like, there's phases of humanity that it goes through. Why is pain so bad, and why can't it just exist? And to Cliffe Knechtle, the question is, I know this is 18 minutes, and this is probably boring as hell for some of you, but to him, I would say, we are being intellectually honest. Like me being an agnostic, we live according to what seems right to us. Like even by the principle of the biblical principle of every single commandment and law. I'm not talking about faith and salvation or redemption right now, which is kind of the bigger overarching story of the Christian passage, believing in Jesus Christ and all this stuff. But even simple laws and moral and ethics, they all boil down to that law of self-sacrifice for the benefit of the community in the long term, or self-sacrifice, or just, sacrificing short-term pleasures for the benefit of the community in the long term. And that comes in traditional family values, of being faithful and loyal. It comes with loving your neighbor as yourself. It comes with turning the cheek to your enemy. It comes with if a person comes to you and they say they're hungry and they're starving and they have nowhere to sleep, and you say, well, God bless you and you'll be all right, but instead of actually helping them and taking them in and taking care of them and helping them recover and go up and go up in life, then you are committing a sin by not taking this person in, and by telling him like, oh, God bless you, I'll pray for you. Like, all these things, they all fall under that basic overarching principle: short-term sacrifice for long-term benefit for you and the community, or sometimes for the community at the cost of you. Jesus Christ being the ultimate example of that, where he lived righteously, was killed, took it on himself to die righteously, and in doing so, word spread all around the thing of like, he became a living symbol of a righteous man being killed and giving nothing but love back. Literally ultimate words as he's dying on the cross. Instead of cursing everybody and telling them how terrible of people they are and like sending lightning down to heaven and being filled with wrath and anger, he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Ultimate sign of forgiveness. Even at the maximum mistreatment of those around you, he sends nothing but love and forgiveness, and asks for nothing but love and forgiveness for all those surrounding him. No threats, no violence, no sending lightning from the sky, even though he could. No sending a legion of angels when Judas came to take him, and Peter was so jealous that he chopped the ear off the other guy's. One of the soldiers coming to take him, he chopped his ear off. Jesus put it back, and he said, "Do you not know? If God wanted to protect me, he could send a legion of angels." So all he does the whole time is just love and forgiveness and grace to everybody, which is an example to us of how we ought to act and sacrifice ourselves when necessary, right? The law of non-resistance, and trusting God to protect us if we need protection, but if not, to sacrifice ourselves, give nothing but love and forgiveness back, and then it will literally lead to the salvation of other people, because our commitment to loving them, even when they are persecuting us to the maximum extent, is the only way to eradicate hate, right? That's the biblical story. There's a book like perfectly encapsulating this principle called The Prosecutor. The old name of the book is I'm Sorry, Natasha, or Прости меня, Natasha, which means I'm sorry, Natasha. That's the old name of the book. Then they renamed it The Prosecutor. But it's basically about a guy during the Soviet Union who went and prosecuted and killed Christians of the Protestant religion during the USSR. He was part of the KGB. He went and killed people. And there was this lady who he beat up several times. And a couple times he basically beat her so bad that he thought that she's dead. And then she recovered, and he went to a different church meeting, and he like saw her again, beat her up then, and he couldn't forget her eyes, because she basically had the eyes of like, Lord, forgive him for he doesn't know what he's doing, and like eyes of love, while she was literally being beaten and like mistreated terribly. And this guy could not get her image out of his head because of the way that she looked at him, and he ended up on a KGB mission, jumping off of the ship, swimming to shore, almost dying because the water was cold, turning his life to Jesus and becoming like one of the biggest like missionaries across Russia, telling people about Jesus Christ and like spreading the gospel, because he was so changed by her love and forgiveness in the face of basically a demon beating her, right? This dude being like a representative of the KGB who wanted to kill every believer. Anyway, all this to say, I hope I answered both. Alex O'Connor, like, why is pain bad? And Cliffe Knechtle, we are being intellectually honest, and we are living on the principles. And you're like, well, how do you believe in these principles? Well, just looking at how the world is, right? It's a 100% pragmatic approach. So we're not doing, what is it? Not epistemology. What is it called? When you ask why you believe what you believe. Starts with an E, a big word. We're not doing that. We're just being 100% pragmatic. Because when you don't know, that's all you have left, is the present moment, the observation of your surroundings. It's like, yeah, I don't know the past. I don't know what came. I don't know how it happened. Looking at life now, this seems to be the best thing to do. Out of pure pragmatism, I'm going to act this way, right? In defense of Alex O'Connor and answering Cliffe Knechtle based on that. Anyway, I went on this response and rant because I was getting really disturbed watching that debate back and forth, and neither side providing good answers or good rebuttals. And I understand there was a lot of like interrupting, but they literally kept going in circles. And so I got so frustrated, I had to make this video to answer both sides and like challenge both sides and be like, what the hell is wrong? So here we are. Thanks for watching this. If you watch this to the end, you can send these responses to them. I hope to hear an answer, or send me a link or your own response telling me how I'm wrong, because I really want to know. Because both of them seemed to make weak arguments, or at least not provide enough information to make it interesting enough to watch to where I wouldn't get frustrated. So there's that. Thank you. Paul here. See you guys later. Bye.